back to another episode of Stripped by Sia, your podcast for strippers, sex workers, and all the fancy naked people in between. I am your host, Steph Sia, aka Sia on Camera Online. You can find me on various online fan subscription adult platforms, as well as I stream exclusively on Streamate. I'm on Sex Panther. I'm on all these lovely platforms where you can find my nudes and other fun things. I was a sugar baby for many years, and that's kind of how I started in the industry. And I was also, I'm now saying was a dancer for several years as well. I'm kind of phasing that part out of my resume for right now and just focusing on the online. So that's just myself. This show is all about sex work, specifically about destigmatizing sex work. So I do that by bringing different guests onto the show every single week, whether they are on-screen talent, they're cam models, they're people in organizations that help advocate for sex worker rights. We have professors and people in academia that study sex work as well. So a really vast amount of people that come on the show to really share the perspective and really give people a really, I guess, accurate, authentic view of what sex work actually is, and not just the things you might see on TV or sensationalized things on TikTok and stuff like that. So we like to tell it like it is on the show. Today is obviously another really great episode, a topic that I'm super excited about. Only the second episode I've done on this particular topic, but with a different perspective this time around. So we are talking about race play. I know that was a very hot topic last time we talked about that. Last time we were talking about that, we were talking about, is it racist to participate in race play as a client, as a sex worker, what that entails. This week we're talking about the performativity of race play. We are talking about, taking certain precautions around it, why it actually can be super profitable, especially as a person of color, and myself as a person of color, our lovely esteemed guest, Savannah, also a person of color as well. So we are going to be talking about that. It's a very, very nuanced topic, which I'm super excited to chat about and kind of get into the nitty gritty. But before we get into that, I just want to say hello to our lovely Patreon subscribers. Thank you all for being by my side since season 4 when I launched it. Really great. If you're curious about what Patreon is or what you can expect from that, it is our little online community over there. I get to kind of like give you sneak peeks about who's coming onto the show, what topics I'm looking to fill. Obviously, all of the full length video exclusives that are on there as well, and lots of bonus content that you can find there, which is very rare to find now publicly. I did give you all a Christmas gift over the holidays for a bonus episode. So yeah, but other than that, like there usually is not many bonus episodes airing anymore. So you can find them all there. We have tiers starting with as low as $4 a month, it goes up to like $11 a month, and each tier gives you specific access to the platform, but you can go ahead and peruse and take a look over there. It is patreon.com/strippedbysia. And if you're curious about like, where are those dollars going? They are going towards hosting my website, strippedbysia.com, as well as myself attending adult industry events that happen around like, XBiz LA. We have the AVNs, XBiz Miami, stuff like that. It is now February, so obviously you guys have not seen me because I have not attended award season in January. It's just been a little hectic. So with that being said, go check it out. It's patreon.com/strippedbysia. I'd love your support because these resources, these episodes, every single week are given out for free because I want to help you all. So, and I don't believe in gatekeeping either. So, so that's where we're at with that. I'm glad to hear in 2025 I am getting this under 5 minutes. But as I mentioned, we have our esteemed guest waiting in the wings today. We have Savannah all the way from London, UK. So yes, I am recording at 8 a.m. my time, and I believe it's probably 4 p.m. in Savannah's time, if I can get my time difference correct. But she is a South Asian sex worker. She is a cam model. You can find her on StreamMate as well. She's a contemporary artist, adult content creator. You can also find her on many different platforms. She's also formerly a full service sex worker as well as a glamour model. And of course, as you know, what I was talking at the top of the episode, she specializes in race play. So I am very excited to kind of dig our feet into this topic and also to get to know Savannah a little better. So please welcome to the show, Savannah.
Hi, Steph. Thank you so much. Oh, I'm so honored. I've been looking forward to this all over Christmas.
Yay! Oh my gosh, that makes me so happy. As am I. I was like looking at my calendar in January. I'm like, who am I going to be interviewing next? There's lots of really exciting people I'm interviewing for the second half of this season. And this one is, I'm also very excited to meet you, but also to get to know you and just learn about your specialty. But also, I mean, it's a really slightly controversial subject for people, which we'll get into. But I'd love for you to maybe give yourself your own introduction. As I mentioned to you off air, I always love to give the opportunity to all of my guests to describe themselves in their own words and terms. So feel free to go ahead.
Wow. Well, yes, as you described, yes, I'm a former full service sex worker. I started I think it was about 2025. Sorry, 2005. Thank goodness,
Wow.
20 years ago. And I've been in full service for a couple of years, and then that brought me to London because I just realized I had a civvy job when I first started full service, and I just thought, oh my goodness, my life would be so much better if I could just escort full time. And then I moved to London, and it was so much better. But then it kind of phased out, and I went to work in education for a couple of years in between. And then in 2018, I was accepted into a master's to study art here in London. And I was like, oh my God, I need to pay for this now. And then came camming, and I started on MFC at that time. So, yes,
Hmm.
yeah.
And now
And I,
you're here.
yeah, yeah. Well, I've recently moved on to StreamMate, but yes.
Yes. Yeah, yeah. And we'll talk about all the things too. I mean, maybe that's a good time for us to kind of go into, I know that's a really brief overview, but like maybe start at the very beginning in terms of like, how you got into sex work. People are always interested on the how, the why stories, what the motivations were. But you can start wherever you want to start at.
Yeah. Um, so when I very first started in full service sex work, I basically had no money, and I needed money ASAP. I had a civvy job, but I just had sudden expenses, and I was living on like, until I got my paycheck, I was living on probably like £2 a day. Um, and just waiting and waiting. And I was like, oh my God, I need money. And I was always drawn to like sex work. I always thought like, what is this? What is this? What is trading my sexuality for income? And I think I'd always known since I was an adolescent that my beauty, my physical appearance, and my sexuality had currency. I knew that like subconsciously. And then came the time when I needed to know it fiscally, and it needed to meet a need. And then I found an escort agency. I was living in Scotland at the time, in Glasgow, and I phoned her up, and she met me, and she was really nice. And I just started working. I did my first job, my first booking, and I remember sitting in the taxi. I had a wad of cash in my hand, and I was like, it was like a week, a couple days or even a week's worth of wages from my civvy job. And I was like, oh my God, I was like 20 at the time. I was like, oh wow. And then I did that kind of like part time, and then was escorting part time. And then I was like, I was so sick of my civvy job. It was like, oh, this is awful. And then I was like, the money would be so much better in London. So I ended up in
Yeah.
London, and here I am. But yeah, how I got into it was because, yes, I needed the money, And I think when I was in that need, that like real survival mode, I had to rely on what my subconscious and my body already knew, what could help me survive. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and we often don't talk about survival sex work much on the
Mm,
show. And it is a very common thing for so many folks. When you're like paycheck to paycheck, you're one paycheck away from poverty. What can we do? Mostly as women and trans folks, what can we do?
absolutely.
How can our body serve us? And this is an answer for many folks because it really is it can be a life or death thing, but it can be, yeah, like, do I want to live comfortably? Do I want to have food on the table? Do I want to provide for my children? That all of those questions kind of come into play at that point. So I'm glad that you were able to utilize that information and that motivation and kind of turn your life around. And it sounds like it has been a good decision for you and it's gotten you to London.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, 100%. And then, just as you were speaking, it got me from survival mode to now camming and content creation is a part of my artwork. Also pays my bills, pays like a mortgage in London, pays for me to have leisure activities, pays for my food, my bills, etc. But it also helps to support my art practice, which I feel is like me very much self actualizing, and it gives me so much pleasure and joy to do that. So, I'm really grateful to go from that to sex work, to go from it helped me survive, it helped me live, and now it's helping me to thrive, really. So, yeah, I'm really grateful.
And I love that. And like, a lot of sex workers are artists and like we are able to support our art and be artists and live as artists with this work supplementing our income or it being the major form of income. Because, I live in Vancouver, it's Hollywood North up here. And I know I have so many friends that are not in the sex work scene that are literally struggling and want to be their true artist self, but they are not able to, and they have to get like another job that can be very demoralizing for them. They are having to go back to school or they just give up on their dreams completely. So like having sex work in our back pocket can be a way for us to again support and live out our dreams and as you mentioned, thrive. So I'm happy to hear that because we need more art in the world always.
100%, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, like going along with your career. So, like, you have moved your way from Scotland over to London. And then I guess you said it kind of, with the escorting part, like that kind of phased out a little bit. What happened there, and how did you move into the online world with being an adult creator and also, being a cam model and stuff too? How did you kind of make that switch?
So, with escorting back into civilian work, into working in education, that was because so the recession hit here in 2008, 2009, and it very much slowed down. And by that time, I was going through certain issues with addiction and stuff, and um, it just kind of just fell away, and it wasn't right for me to be working in escorting because here in London it's very much a party city. And then I got really really bored of it, and I wanted something else, and so I went into education, and that was meaningful for a time. I enjoyed it for a time, and then I realized that my real passion, real passion and joy was art, and I wanted to explore that. And through study and working full time and studying art full time, it wasn't going to work. And I needed like a lot of money quite quickly to pay for education. So yeah, that's how camming started. And then I was like, oh my God, this is so good. I can work whenever I want. And, it took me a while to navigate camming because it's very different to escorting. Escorting is
Totally.
like a wad of cash in one go.
Yes.
And then if you're popular, if I worked with agencies, they liked me, I liked them, they would send me out on bookings, blah, blah, blah. But with camming, it's very much like the algorithm and what
Yeah, it
time do
totally
you work
is.
kind of thing. And then for some reason, sometimes it can be dead. And then you're in an exclusive show and the stream bloody cuts out and it's like, but yeah,
I
here we
know
go.
exactly what you're
Screen
talking
mate, if
about.
you're listening, sort it out. Sort it out.
Girl,
But
I know.
yeah. So
That's the
yeah,
worst.
just the flexibility of camming and content creation, that really, really suited me then. And it still
Hmm.
suits me now. And I realize as I'm saying it, I'm making it sound really easy. But it's not. It's really,
It's
really
not.
hard. It's really
Yeah.
hard to keep your rank up, to keep the customers, retain customers, not, get bored, not get frustrated. Yeah, it's a whole skill set in itself. So.
Yes, yes, it definitely is. Like it's to keep yourself motivated, and your camera room can be empty, or there's like one person coming in, popping in and out, and you're like, how do I stay online? How do I stay motivated? Because you just never know who's coming in or like what the wave is going to be like, and that part is definitely hard sometimes because you're like looking outside, it's like all sunny and beautiful, I just want to be outside, and like this is like I'm not making any money right now because like you're gonna have a $50 day, you're gonna have a $500 day, like it's so up and down, a total roller coaster. So I totally understand what you mean by that. But I mean, yeah, the transition can be hard because like I'm kind of going through a similar thing over the past year. Kind of, if you guys heard at the top of the episode, not really actively stripping that much anymore in person or doing any kind of in-person work much anymore, and just kind of reverting all of my efforts towards the online because for the same reasons as you actually, Savannah. Like for me, it's flexibility, me really wanting to dictate what my own hours are going to be and really trying to keep that motivation going. But as you mentioned, it's not easy, it's challenging and can be really, really hard at times. But yeah, I feel you on a lot of those notes there. But going back to you, Savannah, obviously we're talking about race play in this episode, and we can't separate race play without talking about race, your ethnic roots, your upbringing, and yourself as a South Asian cam model and sex worker. Like I was telling you off air, but like for me, like it's so rare to see that. Like I don't know, maybe it's just here in North America, but it's like it's significantly lower than other folks that I see. Like even less than myself as an Asian person. Like it's just can that like I don't know, maybe it's different in London. I know there is a lot of South Asian folks over there. I'm not sure if that also translates over into sex work as well, but I'd love for you to maybe speak about that and like your personal experience as a person of color, specifically with like South Asian descent and navigating that.
Yeah, absolutely. So yes, in London we have like several whatever million Asian people.
Hmm.
Um, but I remember when I was escorting, I think I was one of three, max four,
Yeah.
um, Asian, South Asian escorts working with that agency.
Yeah.
And God knows how many people she had on her books. Um, and now with camming, um, I mean, Asian people, gosh, I'm talking about Indians,
Hmm.
um,
Hmm.
camming. I think on StreamMate, there's got to be less than 10 of us.
Totally. Yeah.
Yeah. And this is like, so online presence. Um, and I think that's, I mean, so I've got a niche there.
Yes, you
I've got a
do.
niche there.
Absolutely.
But yeah, I couldn't just ride on that. I had to go kind of like further and really delve into what I can do with this,
Hmm.
being an Indian sex worker online. Um, yeah, so I've got a niche, but the thing about online is that I'm online, I'm on the World Wide Web, the whole web can see me, on StreamMate. I think we have to have our faces visible. I'm not 100% sure about that rule, but I know that in India, um, there are several tens of thousands full service sex workers. And I think that that's
Mm.
really in survival sex work. And to be honest, I think it's a job basically. It's not as like a web developer or a nurse or a police officer would go and do their job to live. It's like their way of living. And I
Hmm.
think that that's really interesting. Um, I know that full service sex workers in India are discriminated against. And
Hmm.
I know that they've done a lot of work and they've done so much. And I'm really just so in awe of the work that they've done, because it's, as full service sex workers in that culture, because it's also served me as an Indian woman, camming online in the West.
Hmm.
So, yeah.
Yeah. No, I hear you with that. Like it's so different like when we're talking like east versus west, like generally speaking, and like I'm Filipino Chinese and like sex work is viewed as it's like a don't ask, don't tell kind of thing. It's like a very hush hush thing. Generally looked down upon. And that's like the biggest shame you could bring to your family.
Mm,
At least over there. Like I'm not sure if it's similar in Indian culture too, or like I mean there can be a lot of I guess misogyny in certain cultures as well, which is like, obviously really sad to see. And it goes in with like how they look at women, how they treat women, how like the lack of respect of like that's really curious to hear about. There's like many escorts and like full service workers that are in India, and then it's so interesting coming here in the West how there's it's a very few. As I mentioned to you earlier, like, and you were saying too, like you were like under 10, like I count them on my hand, like
yeah.
how many how many of us that are there. Like why do you think that is that just because how like upbringing or just the culture, or what's your hypotheses?
I think it's like maybe there's less need for Indian sex workers to go into survival sex work, maybe over here. I think there's a lot of shame, a very hush hush, like promiscuity, or oh my God, you're having sex, or like, oh, you're naked, you're nudity, and showing your body, being sex positive, being body positive. I think there might be a lot of Indian feminists who will talk about like, you know, sexuality among Indian people, Indian women, and Indian LGBTQ folks, but Indian sex workers aren't included in that conversation. So that's slightly off topic, but why not so many Indian sex workers here? I think maybe it's the face out thing. I think maybe Indian sex workers in the UK have some just it won't be seen as appropriate or acceptable to be phased out in sex work here.
No, that makes a lot of sense. Like even like a good girlfriend that I have who's just a pole dancer, like does not even do any sex work, is not a stripper. She had to make like a separate account for just her pole dancing. Like someone told her family and like that was she was not allowed to dance anymore for a long time until she started up again. But like it's just yeah, maybe it's like the face out thing, like the association that it might have with sex work. Like there's so many questions that I have there, but it sounds similar to like my culture too, and the whole like we don't do this kind of work, and it's just kind of like um I guess like how do I say this, like uh cohesive, you don't do this type of work kind of mentality. In that, does that ever get like isolating for you in the work?
Um, Not in the work. I think yeah, not really in the work, because I don't tend to like um attend sex worker like events like AVN or things. I don't think we have them in London anyway, but I guess the closest we'd have is in Bucharest. But yeah, I don't
Yeah.
tend to attend. But I mean, if people ask me what I do, if civvy people ask me what I do, I say I do office admin, because I seem to be doing like that's 80% of my job here as like a cam model. I just do admin. It's ridiculous. But isolating. Um, no, because I think like I've recently joined more like online sex worker communities, and that's been really, really good. And I'm now just comfortable with the another a sex worker who I respect described it as a truthful lie, in terms of like not you kind of lying about what we do, what we're when we're up, what we do. Yeah, because it can be
Totally.
exhausting having to tell people.
Oh, absolutely. I like don't even like to go into that conversation because I don't trust a lot of people in
Yeah,
general.
exactly.
Like if I don't, yeah, it's just like a protective, defensive thing. Unless I actually know them or I get to know them, then maybe I'll share what I do. But generally speaking, that's another like opening up a can of worms sometimes. So I gotta pick and choose. But I mean, going back into the topics of like race play, obviously ethnicity will go hand in hand with that. You were mentioning to me before, like, race play can be a thing that is both profitable and problematic. And I'd love to kind of know what you mean by that when you refer to those terms in regards to race play.
Just hearing you say that, I think for me it's profitable because it is problematic. I think
Hmm.
the taboo, I think that, oh, we must not do, or, that's not politically correct. That would be shamed if that was said out loud. I think that's what makes it profitable for me, because it's so like difficult to find that, and to have a safe space for my clients to explore that. Um, so it's not like they can message an Indian person on Tinder and be like, "Oh yeah, worship my white cock." They just be like, "Oh my god, could you imagine?" And be like, "Oh, you prick, fuck off." And they might be like taken off Tinder. Sorry, I swear, but
Yeah, totally.
yeah, I mean, yeah, it's amazing. Um, so yes, it's I think having that as a niche, I got into that accidentally. I think
Mm.
what happened was I was on MFC and someone asked for a Skype show, um, and they wanted to do that. And I was like, okay. And I didn't think for a second, oh, this is offensive, this is this, or this is, because I think it's the way they asked me. I think they asked me in a very professional and open way. And so that's
Mm-hmm.
why they asked me for my permission, for my consent. Will you meet this desire? Can you do this role play? And I said, yeah. And I just felt like maybe in that moment, I felt like this is a customer or a client who is proposing me for some work. And as a professional, I accept it or I don't. And I feel like if I'd said no, they would have accepted that. So I think that's how I got into it. And that's how I thought this is okay for me to do,
Yeah.
because it felt okay. So I think, yeah, the way people ask, because that request, uh, it also means that they're paying me before they even make that respect. They're requesting me to dirty talk in that way. So yeah, I think that's what made it okay. And then from that, I was like, I just started like making content. I take on different personas, like MILF next door worships your white cock. And then I started doing Indian babysitter worships your white cock, Indian exchange student, Indian secretary, all
Ah.
those roles, all those like
Yeah.
roles. And then they were just selling and selling and selling. And another client described my business to me as um, based on customer service, which I took as a compliment, and data driven. So because it was selling and selling, I just kept making more and more and more. And the fact that this is problematic, the fact that in the civvy world this would be like, oh my god, to a screen face, that mask, um, that just went over my head because I just saw, this is really great. This is really popular. And then because I had it on my content, it would be requested in private shows, exclusive shows, Skype shows. So it just kept like coming in and coming in. So I never felt like shame. I never felt like I'm letting my culture down, or I'm propagating racism. I never felt
Mm-hmm.
that. I just felt like
No.
I was meeting a need. So yeah.
Yeah, no, it is a need. Like, obviously, it's in demand. There's people that are seeking out this content, for those who do create this content, because you mentioned it is a niche, and it is a very, like, quote unquote, like, taboo thing, because it's people might think it's a bad thing. People might think it's propagating racism and stuff like that. But um, akin to what you said earlier too, you're like, depends on how, like, the people are asking, how the clients are asking you, and it is a service, if that is something that you offer. It is a kink. People are really into this, but it can be really difficult to find people who can make that fantasy come true for them. I mean, taking us back to that first time where that client asked you, and he had asked you in these specific terms, how was that? How did you feel performing that role during that time? Like, were you nervous? It was something that you had never done before. How did you navigate the dialogue and stuff too, or was that kind of like provided to you, like, please say these specific terms, and we'll kind of play along with that?
So the first time, it was a few years ago now, so I don't specifically remember, but I feel like I was so used to dirty talk. And then
Mm-hmm.
when they were like, if they were like, oh, say my white cock, I just said all the dirty talk and then white cock on top. It was just like so performative for me. So I
Mm-hmm.
didn't feel like, because also what I have to say is when I'm camming, I'm very much in a persona. It's not me. I'm
Yes.
not like this hypersexualized, hypersexual, cock slut. I love all 10 guys come on my face. It's just not it's just
Yeah.
not me. But,
Yeah.
I really enjoy the persona. And so I think when they were like, say this, and as you said, because they asked in such a boundaried professional way, it just came so easily to me, because really it's just words. I don't feel like there's hate or discrimination behind it. Because what I also get is white men, I guess I also have to say about 98% of my fans are cis males. I don't know why that is, but it just is. And so I get white guys, black guys, Asian guys, all the Asian guys saying, can you humiliate me, my cock and my melanin content? So it goes both ways. And if that's what they want, if that's their desire, I will provide it. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, definitely. And I love how you just go back to like, in terms of, like, it's just words, because, like, what is the difference between, like, race play and just, like, throwing in, like, blank colored cock in front of it and stuff too. Like, I know there are more, like, scenario based race play. So, like, for instance, when I had interviewed Tia Maria, which was like the last guest that I had in season 6 talking about race play, they were like very specific scenarios in terms of and I don't even want to say them on air right now because I'm not comfortable, because I'm not a person of, I'm not black, so I'm not even going to go there. But there are scenarios like that in a fetishized way. Like, does that kind of change the narrative at that point? And then it's not just words anymore, it's more specific, like, to those scenarios, like, without me saying those scenarios.
Um, yeah.
Like, more like
Oh,
colonize-y behavior,
oh,
more
sure. Yes,
colonize-y
yes, yes.
specific.
No,
That's what
so
I'm trying to say.
colonizing
Yeah.
is like my niche within the niche. And it's
Hmm.
like, oh, I want to spread my race. I want to overtake your race and spread my race. That's
Hmm.
like the niche within the niche. And
Yeah, totally.
for me, that's also where, I guess when I say the niche within the niche, that's where my money is. And so
Yeah.
that's what I what I do, I propagate that content. I'm trying to think back. I do get custom orders, but now that you said it, guys don't ask in my customs. They just buy it from my profile. And that's really
Nice.
interesting. Maybe they're uncomfortable asking me. I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah. Yeah, it could be a thing too, because like it's a comfortability thing, and like if you already have it available, like okay, well it's already serving that need. Then you don't have to ask or skirt around the topic and stuff too.
Hi, it's Carly David, founder of PS Group, marketing agency for sex workers by sex workers. We're here to give you the tools you need to stand out. From slick websites to next level marketing strategies, we want to turn your fans into loyal customers. Our fees are project based, no commissions, no percentages. We believe you should keep the rewards of your hard work. So if you're serious about taking your brand to the next level, visit us at sexworkmarketing.com. Say hello. We'd love to talk to you.
Yeah, I mean, like in terms of like boundaries, like when it comes to race play, are there any boundaries when it comes to race play, or does that depend on the individual itself?
So for me, when a customer is asking for race play or really anything beyond "Hi, how are you? Where are you from? What do your tattoos mean?" Um, they would have to. That's like the standard. Um, where's your accent from? It would have to come with a tip as a courtesy. I like that because it is dirty talk, which is engaging my work. And then, yeah, usually when they're filling out a custom, they put it in writing exactly what they want. And if there's some parts that I won't do, I'll just say I won't do that. Do you still want the work? But 99.9% of the time I'll just do it because it's on the custom form. That's fine. In terms of me, if I was to humiliate them, or for me to instigate race play, quote against and quote them, they have to be very clear about what they want and what they don't want. There's always a safe word because I'm in a domination role. So yes, it's always, if they want that, they will get that, but they have to explicitly ask for it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Do you have a lot of folks that are explicitly asking for specific scenarios for you to engage
Yes.
in? Yes.
Yeah. 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 I had a gentleman ask me very politely, and I was like, um, I haven't done a Skype on StreamMate yet. I think that would be bad girl. I think they might spank me if I took someone off as StreamMate. So I haven't done it yet. But someone asked me for some specific language, and I said, mate, I think I might get thrown off StreamMate for that if we went to an exclusive. So he was like,
Yeah.
then, and that was the end of that. So yeah, yeah,
Yeah. And that's the thing too, like skirting around the terms and services a lot on these platforms too. I mean Skype shows are definitely a way to do that for sure. Other ways, but like, do you how do you tiptoe along those lines? And how do you navigate the conversation to like we got to go somewhere else, or are you just super open about that? Because like obviously we don't want to get banned.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I'm very open about that. I am. And I say, I'm newish on StreamMate and I'm not 100% sure how it works. On MFC, everybody, I don't know if it was okay to do Skypes, but a lot of models do Skypes. We just
Yeah,
take
they do.
payment on MFC and then go on
Yes.
Skype. But yeah, I would just say, um, the site has rules around language, and I like to respect that. I think like StreamMate, MFC admin we've always been fine. So I want to respect their boundaries as they respect mine. So yeah, because they have more responsibility, I think, as a company. Um, yeah, so I don't want to get them in trouble. So yeah,
No, of course. And like the last thing you want is to get your account kicked off and that
exactly.
being a whole
There's
thing.
that
And
too.
I've been there, so like I would not recommend that to anyone because it sucks. But yeah, I mean, like talking about, like you're talking about, being in a dominatrixy type of role in this, because it is a dom sub complex. Talk to us a bit about like the power play between the two when it comes to race play, if you don't mind.
Okay, cool. So when I am worshipping the white cock, I'm in a submissive role, and I don't feel like I am personally sexually submissive or particularly domination-y, but I'm very much playing a role. My voice changes, my facial expressions change, my whole body language changes. And it's very, very much I'm performing a role. And that's how I navigate it. And then when the show's finished, my body knows it's finished and my mind knows it's finished. And then I go and back online and I see my next client kind of thing. So I know that within me, and because I've done it and I know that it's a role, and I'm very like hammed up when it's very pantomime because my clients like that kind of like over the top kind of thing. So I think they like it. So yeah, I very much know that it's a role, very, very performative for me. So it's safe for me to just switch. It's slightly different when I'm in the dominatrix role. I always say there has to be a safe word. Again, they have to be very explicit about what language they want me to use, and I will stick to that and that not veer off that. And then when the show's finished, they log off, but I will always stay online. And if they need anything from me, I'll be there, for aftercare as such. So yeah, I
So
think it's
important to talk about
so important.
aftercare. Yeah, I mean, like even talking about like staying online, being available. For myself, like I like to just send a little message like, hey, like in my normal self, like hey, like that was really fun. Just checking in, like hope you're okay. Like maybe I'll see you next time, kind of thing. But like, how do you yourself like navigate aftercare? Because like it's such an important topic when we're talking about any kind of dom sub complex. Let's kind of go into that a little bit too.
So when I'm the dom, uh, I would so on MFC I would leave their ability to private message me open for maybe half an hour after they finish their show, and then I would message them very similar to how you do it, like message them and say, oh, thanks so much. I really hope you enjoyed it. But I think 98% of the time they've had their orgasm or
Yeah.
whatever they needed, and they've probably just logged off. So I haven't had an experience where my client needed the care. I just wanted to make it available. So
Yeah.
yeah.
No, I'm the same way too, like especially with the online work, like an in-person work. Yeah, I think depending on what you're doing.
Mm.
Yeah, like I had more experiences like okay, like we need to be available for that. But I have similar experiences to you like most I think like yeah, all of the time they've came, they did their thing. I'll see them tomorrow. They're
Yeah,
gone.
exactly.
But the thought is there, though. I think it's important to still exercise that. I think that's a really important thing, especially if we're doing any kind of dominatrix style roles there. I also wanted to talk about, talking about, you said it's kind of like an on and off button for you at this point in your career. Um, when you were first kind of starting off with this, how were you able to really solidify your online persona, your work persona, and just be able to separate that from you? Because I feel like some folks, their personas are blended, or like some people listening out there might struggle with that delineation between work persona and true personal persona and stuff. So, how do you, as an individual, navigate that?
Yes. So as you were speaking, I was remembering when I was first started sex work when I was 20. And at that time, it's very difficult for me to not take anything personally. And I think, like, I think it was because I was 20. I was, which now I see 20-year-olds and I'm thinking, oh my geez, like that was very young to go into this industry. Um,
Yeah.
so especially in a city like London, it's so cutthroat in every single industry. It's even worse in the sex industry. So I think then it was very difficult, but I think I don't want this to sound really like cringy and patronizing, but it feels like I'm trying to articulate in a different way. Now, fast forward 20 years, I will turn 40 this year, God willing.
Amazing.
And it's like, I think I've just stopped taking things personally. I think my internal sense of healthy detachment from what's their stuff, what's the stuff, what's my stuff, I just understand that a bit better. And that's how I'm able to separate my cam model persona from who I am with me when I'm alone, who I am in my relationships, who I am with this friend, who I am in when I'm talking to someone about my artwork. I'm all these different people. So yeah,
Yeah, healthy detachment is super
so important,
important in this line of work.
so important, so
It's
important.
necessary in my opinion. So yeah, that can be really hard. Like, I mean, with folks that are participating in race play, do you think there is more weight that is on that? But I guess it also depends on the scenario beyond just dirty talk. But like when we're talking about more colonizing type scenarios, like do you think is there more weight for you yourself, or like can there be weight in that kind of work? Because some folks listening might be like, oh, this can be really heavy, or they might have a personal experience with that or something. I'd love to hear from that perspective.
Yeah. So do you know what? I think it would be if I talked about it with civvy people, because they might be like, what the actual F, like, what are you doing kind of thing. So, but I don't. So I think that's why it's just like, it's this persona. It's like a fantasy. I feel like it's like me doing this like colonizy, a 15-minute video for me to sell. And for me in my brain, when I'm uploading it, I'm mathematically, methodically thinking, how many of these do I need to make to get to my monthly target? And
Mm-hmm,
that's all
mm-hmm.
it is for me. Because personally, I've no desire to be, colonized and my, reproductive organs used to propagate, whatever kind of, whatever is going on.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel like, um, yeah, I feel like, oh my gosh, if my civvy friend saw that and be like, what are you doing? But they know me and they know my artwork, so I think they'd get it. Um,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, so I feel like it is, I kind of think like, what's the difference between that and an actor playing a superhero or a
Yeah.
villain on
Yeah.
screen? So yeah,
Totally.
yeah,
Yeah, and that's a really good way of looking at it too. Like, if for those who are wanting to get into race play and are having that trouble to detach, like thinking of it as an acting role, thinking of it as a fantasy you're fulfilling, like these are all just roles that we're taking on. And you kind of have to leave the guilt, leave the shame, leave all of those things that come with that role you're playing, and leave it at the door.
yeah, exactly. And understand, these are targets, this is data, this is like the graph you see on this, the site that you're working on. It's numbers. It's not like I'm attacking someone on the street, or it's not that. It's not that. So yeah.
Yeah, it's a clear separation between the two for sure. Um, for yourself, like obviously, and this is just in regards to sex work in general, your sex work, your work, your art. How do you do self care? Like, what does self care look like to you? Because, like, I feel like anytime we're talking about work, we need to talk about how do you take care of yourself after all this.
Exactly. So when we were talking about healthy detachment, for me, I only really started getting what that meant within the last 2 years. And I'm like, yeah, as I said, I'm hitting 40 this year. So it took me a while. I think for me it starts with boundaries and being okay to say the word no. And I had to learn that in my personal life as well as in sex work. And I think, I don't know, I don't want to blame Indian culture, but there's a lot of people pleasing. There's a lot of, I don't know if, I'd love to hear from if there are any Indians listening to this, but I feel like there's a lot of codependence in Indian culture. And, just say yes, just please, just don't rock the boat. And especially, I can speak as a cis female, because that's what I identify as. And for me, that was my lived experience. I just had to say, I had to say yes, had to go along with it, blah, 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 blah. And there was it's just a very subjugating, be under the person, always say yes kind of thing, don't upset anyone. And I really had to learn to say, be okay with upsetting people, be okay with letting people down, being okay with not meeting expectations. And my self-care really started with that, really, really started with that. And I think that's why sex work was so good for me, because I don't need to give two rat's asses about not meeting expectations on a Skype show,
Mhm.
saying no to a customer. I just say it once, and then if they keep asking me, that's it, they're out of my room, basically.
Yeah.
So, and I think that really helps. Sex works really help with understanding the importance of boundaries and how valuable my no is. And when I was able, what happened as I continued saying no was I got to learn what my authentic yes was, like what I really want, as a person, as a sex worker, as, I guess that's just my job, like, as a woman, sexually, physically, emotionally, what do I want to eat even? So yeah, yeah.
Yeah, no, this is really great. There's a couple like points I want to just kind of dig our feet in for a little bit, but being okay with saying no. I think, a lot of maybe new sex workers can really struggle with that. I know I was definitely part of that club for like when I was first starting out and wanting to not only just please everyone, but also like it was a fear of, oh my gosh, this is a customer, this is a paying customer, and like I don't want to have to let go of business, because to me in my mind it was like I see the money walking out my room right now, like did I fuck that up? How did you get okay with that? Because yes, there's the boundary pushing, like those ones are a lot easier to say no, but like for the just your messaging to those who might be starting out and who might be struggling with this, like how do you become okay with saying no to
Yes.
people?
So yeah, I mean, as a person who started sex work for to get money to buy food, I totally understand that saying no for me at that time was actually not an option. So because I needed to eat, because I needed to live. So now things are very different, and I feel like um, I totally understand needing the money, and I totally understand not being able to say no, not feeling like you can say no because you need the money. But um, what I want to say is that every time I've said no, just because it didn't feel right, it didn't feel right in my gut, it didn't feel right in my body, it didn't feel right in my mind, but I couldn't even articulate or read to say why. I could just feel it didn't feel right. Anytime I said no, within 5 minutes, I had a new customer and it was fine. So anytime I feel no, it's okay. That's what I've come to learn. And I know that sounds so woo woo. It feels like, oh my God, I've got my heating bill due, I've got my rent due, what's going on? I've got children. Um, uh, yeah, just that trust was so important. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, no, that's so important to say. But I'm also with you on that too. And like, there's going to be someone else out there that's going to want your content or want a private with you or an exclusive with you and stuff too. It's not woo woo. It's not woo woo. It's very
Okay.
true. It's very, very true. So I'm glad that, for those who need to hear that, we all have different reasons for being in the work and different motivations, but like, it's still important for you to assert your boundaries and what is healthy to you, because you don't want to have to take that home after you're done work, after you log off, after you're done your sessions or whatever. Like you need to take care of yourself first and foremost. So Yeah, and talking about like, your own self-care too. Like obviously in this business there's a lot of tendencies to overwork ourselves, for burnout and stuff too. So how do you again say no to business, when we always constantly have dollar signs kind of dangling over our head, and when is the time for you to take a break?
So, um, so how do I say no when it's really, really quiet that day? It is so hard. Like, I feel like I'm stuck to my cam on a quiet day. Because on a busy day, I'm so exhausted. I'm like, oh my God, one more, I do one more person. Oh my days. But on a quiet day, I'm like, where are these people?
Yeah.
I have to think, is it me? No,
No,
because
never.
I'm the only constant. Um, is it just quiet out there? Maybe. What else can I do? I'm a content creator, so I've got all my makeup on, or take me like a couple minutes to source outfits. I can make content that day. If I don't have the energy, I can say, okay, I don't have the energy today. I'll just get a cup of tea, get something to eat, and I'll see if I've got the energy again. Um, and if not, that's okay. I just have to say to myself, it's okay. But what I have to say as well is that sometimes my room is quiet because there's an issue, there's a technical issue on the site side. So there's always check my cam model link. Can I see myself? I have my link on my Twitter and I click on that, am I visible? So that's another practical thing. Um, so yes, is it me or is it the site? And what's
Yeah.
going on? On a content site on ManyVids, last year I suddenly saw a very steep drop in my sales, and I was like, "What's going on?" Then my intuition just said, "Make a customer profile and search for yourself." So I did that, and I put in my name, and I couldn't see myself. I wasn't
Oh,
visible. And so I messaged the site and said, I've done this and I'm not visible. Help me. And they said, we're so
yeah.
sorry, it's a technical issue on our end. And then my
Right.
sales went back to normal. So just be really careful. I think the what I learned when it's quiet is it's not personal. It's just the
Yeah.
way it is. In terms of keeping the money stable, I think because sex work is so like it's so sporadic, it can be
Yes.
until you get to a stage where you're stable, which for me took a few years. Um, keep an eye on the money. Really keep an eye on
Yeah.
the money. Yeah,
Yeah, that's so
yeah,
true. Like for myself, I have specific working hours that I will be working, and then like once I'm at that hour, like maybe I'll let it slide like maybe up to like half an hour, but then I really need to like log off, and I really try my best to exercise that. Otherwise, I'm like, oh, there's another one, and another one, another one. And yes, there's gonna be times where I'm just like, oh yeah, we're gonna take a few more. Um, but then like I will make plans after, or like I have plans to spend with my partner, or I have like a gym class at a certain time that I definitely have to log off on, and I need to do that for myself. So that's just like a method that I do for myself in terms of like time management, but also like to make sure I'm actually logging off at an appropriate time and I'm not giving into the overworking part, because it happens way too often for me.
absolutely,
So
100%, 100%. And it's so easy to do. And
yes.
yeah, I'm exactly the same. Ditto. Like I work until this time and that's it. And but then over the holiday period, it was busier for me. So I did, work the extra half hour. One day I did an extra hour, but then I was like, oh my God, I'm done. I don't care. I don't care. I don't care who's coming here. I'm done. I'm done. So yeah, yeah.
No, that makes sense a lot. I mean, these are all really great tips. And I mean, this whole conversation in general was like hopefully super eye-opening for folks, and would hopefully see it as, this is something that could be part of my repertoire, could be part of my services, and hopefully it would be more palatable for folks listening that have wanted to dabble in, that have been getting those requests. They'd be like, it is okay for you to partake in this kind of
Yeah,
fetish. So
absolutely. Yeah, and I feel like I wanted to say for like my clients and customers who are thinking about wanting to engage in race play, to explore that part of their sexuality. I did mention, asking in a certain way, sending a tip across, because it is a niche and does engage quite a lot of work on the part of the performer. And also in that, I just feel like for a customer, for a client, for a cis male, for anybody actually to approach a sex worker and say, I want this, will you do it? I just feel like there's so much like healthiness and sophistication in that sexual desire to be really like precise and clear about what you want. I just feel like that's such an amazing thing. And if that's something that they want to explore, if it's like something else like exploring other aspects of your sexuality, like same-sex pleasure, anything like that, someone a lot older, articulate it, because sex workers, we're the safe space for you to do that. So, by all means, more power to you. And
yeah, no, this has been super great. And I love that because we do have a lot of clients listening on the show as well. So I'm hoping that people will be following your tips and tricks there. There weren't any questions that came in, but there were definitely a few comments that I just like want to read because a lot of people are really, really curious about this episode. So, this person wrote, if it's good and it's safe, sure, but there should be some questions about crazy power dynamic scenarios, which I feel like we mentioned earlier in the show. And of course, this other person wrote in, that one's from Twitter, by the way. And this one wrote in from Instagram, if the money is right and near chill, for sure. So yeah, there's like some definitely people that are absolutely for it. And if it's not for you, that is within your prerogative. That's within your boundary. That's okay. Because there's always going to be people that are going to be serving this kind of stuff anyway.
absolutely.
So. But I mean, this was a fantastic conversation, Savannah. I've had so much fun talking with you over the past hour. But in case people have questions, people want to reach out to you, where can they find you?
On Twitter, I am XX69Babe, but I do have people creating fake profiles of me. So you can also find me on any of my content sites, BabeXX69XX. I know that sounds like a sex bot, but that's kind of what I am. Like, if you're a sex worker or a client, I have a self-care for sex workers page on Instagram. So find me there.
Yay! All those things all the links are in the show notes below. So if you guys have not clicked on it, now is the time to do that. Do your homework, do your thing, say hello to Savannah. She's been such a great guest with us today. And if you're wanting to get in touch with myself, you can get in touch with me on X and Blue Sky, which is Stripped by Sia. You can also find me on Instagram, which is Stripped by Sia Podcast. Again, if you're interested in coming onto the show, it's strippedbysia.com. I have a contact form there. You can go ahead and kind of pitch yourself in there. I'm open to many topics. So like keep them coming in because there's a lot of you that have been writing in and I read all of them. Like it literally goes to my inbox and I don't let those things go to waste. So please contact me. That's what Savannah did. And I love it. I love it when you guys come with a really different perspective on the show. You've done your homework and there's so many topics that I have not yet covered. I haven't found the right people for. So maybe you are that person. So don't be shy, do your thing. And of course, if you want to support the show financially, it's patreon.com/strippedbysia. And it is new episodes every single Sunday, dropping at midnight Pacific Standard Time. If you have a minute to review and rate the show, 5 stars on Spotify, on Apple, feel free to write a review. All that stuff truly helps get the word out and helps other folks like yourselves find and discover the show. So please do that. I would love to see a bit more of those ratings up as well. But with that being said, that's it from myself. That's it from Savannah for this week. But there will be, of course, new episodes next Sunday. And we'll see you all in for that one then. Savannah, thank you so much for joining us today. It was such a pleasure to have you on.
Thank you so much, Steph. I absolutely loved it. It's so nice for me to have a safe space to talk about this stuff. So thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you. You're listening to Stripped by Sia, hosted, produced, and edited by Steph Sia. Music by Ted D. Graphic design by Maria Bellandarama, and photography by Ian Dabrin.